Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another incredible guest. I was not expecting his accent when I popped on because he's from Sandy, Utah. I'm from Orem, Utah, and so you just don't always expect a nice Londoner accent to show up when you're talking to somebody in Utah. But Elliot Roe is his name. He is a world-renowned mindset and performance coach in high demand, loves working with people from all different types of industry, but a lot of his clients are professional athletes, Olympians, UFC champions, esports competitors, which is awesome. I mean, the idea of esports, I think people look over that as if it's like not a thing, but esports is getting bigger.
Yes, it's getting big.
Yeah, it's crazy. And what's cool is that they still need coaching. You'd think, why does somebody like that in that industry? We're going to get into that, I'm sure. Hollywood actors, high-stake poker players, Wall Street traders, entrepreneurs, founders, executives. I mean, it's just all over the board. But really, he just wants to help people get out of their own way and really perform at their peak. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, Elliot. I'm excited to hear your story. How'd you end up in little old Utah from such a wonderful place like London? But and then why? You know, why do you do what you do, and what about it excites you, and where do you see yourself going from here?
Okay, so I guess my story when it comes to hypnotherapy is that I had a fear of flying. So I had a fear of flying. It was impacting the amount of traveling I would do. So I would actively not take vacations where it was a long flight. So I'd turn down trips, things like that. I found a hypnotherapist to work on it. It had been recommended to me. I was very skeptical, but I went to talk with her, and she managed to resolve it in an hour. And it completely changed my life. And what was most interesting for me is we went into this session, we went through this process of getting very relaxed. So getting into sort of a trance-like state. It's not like you would see on a stage show, but you're certainly in a very relaxed, meditative state. And it brought up a memory from me where I was at my grandfather's house. I was shown a picture of a small plane, and I'd been told that it had crashed and killed his business partner. Now, we then worked through that memory, released the emotion from it, and I just didn't feel scared of flying past that point. What was interesting to me is it wasn't a memory that I was aware of. And when I got home, I spoke to my mom, and she said, yep, that was real. That did happen. So I'd had uncovered a memory that explained why I was scared of flying. And it resolved an issue that was impacting my life. And because of that, I went and got trained as a hypnotherapist, not really ever expecting it to be a career. I was sort of seeing it as a useful skill set, something where I could help friends and family. And, you know, if I could have my life changed in a short period of time, then I might be able to do it for other people. Started doing hypnotherapy on the side, and things started going really well. So I was working in the investment industry at the time, and then started working with some golfers. They were improving their scores. One of my friends worked in the poker industry, and she said, if you're helping golfers with stress on the green, you should see if you could help poker players on final tables, because the stress can potentially cost them millions of dollars. And I managed to break into that industry. This is around a decade ago. And the poker players I worked with had some very extreme success. So they won the World Series of Poker main event, all the major tournaments pretty much around the world. It got to over $100 million of winnings, which is extreme in poker. And because of that, I started getting recommended to other businesses, other sports. So I ended up working with UFC fighters. I ended up working with Olympians, and the poker players at the highest stakes. It's not just other poker players they're playing with businessmen, they're playing with stockbrokers, and sort of word started to spread about a mindset coach who was helping all the poker players. And I started moving into those industries as well. So now probably around 30% of my clients are still in the poker world, and everyone else is either sports, and then predominantly now business, those CEOs of companies, founders of companies, traders on Wall Street, or crypto traders now, because that's starting to become quite a big thing as well. So that's the sort of the very brief origin story regarding the hypnotherapy. In terms of moving from London to Sandy, Utah, my wife was offered a job in Las Vegas, and obviously, poker is not a bad place to be if you're helping poker players and UFC fighters. Las Vegas. So we moved over there, and I was building my business, and she was doing her work, and then we had twin girls and decided that twin girls, it wasn't the right place to bring them up. So we had some family in Utah, and we moved over to Utah a few years ago.
That is incredible, man. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So interesting, the fear of flying. Let's just go back to fear itself, though, because maybe not everybody has a fear of flying. I certainly know people who do, but I know just about everybody, myself included, and probably to a level yourself included, still to this point, we all have certain fears, just certain fears we are okay with and we don't bother dealing with because we don't see them impeding our life necessarily. And then other fears, they actually are holding us back. But how do you determine which fear is impeding your progression in either business or family or relationships, and which fears are just like, well, why? Like, why does that matter?
So, I mean, when it comes to the fears that I'm working on, so typically the people who come to me are a high performer in their industry. So in most cases, they're top 100 in the world. In many cases, they're top 10 in the world. So they haven't got a fear that stopped them from being successful. I'm trying to take them from 95% to 98%, something like that. But what I notice, and the sort of fears that we're looking for in the work that I do, is it's almost always a form of self-sabotage. It's a fear of failure, a fear of success, and we're looking to help them understand how they can uncap their potential. So an easy way to look at whether you have any resistances or fears in the business that you're doing is I'll have my clients think about the number one person in their industry and write down the things that person does to make them number one in the industry. And then put a ticker across next to the things that you do in your industry. And a lot of the time, there's a lot of crosses next to the things. So it's not that the client doesn't know what they should be doing, it's that they're choosing to not do those things. And that can be from a fear of failure. It can be as an ego protection. And what we'll be doing with the hypnotherapy is tracing back the root causes of that. Typically, this is to childhood, self-worth issues. Am I lovable? Am I good enough? Those sorts of things. And then working through those issues that happen in childhood that created the learned fear. And fear as sort of as a concept or a context. I believe that we learn our fears predominantly in childhood as is an evolutionary tool. So you're in the forest and there's a tiger. Your mum's going to react to the tiger. You're going to realize it's dangerous. When you see a tiger again, you're going to have a fight or flight response. Incredibly useful when you're in, prehistoric times, not quite so useful in the modern world. And we pick it up in different ways. So social situations, can come up that trigger things in the same way that feel like life and death to us. I mean, the flying felt like life and death to me because there was a part of my 5-year-old self or whatever age I was when that crash happened that believed if you get on a plane, there's a decent chance you die. So for me, it felt like a life and death fear. And, it was irrational, but to a child, it makes sense. But we're just all running these programs. And we're just running them in different ways through our life.
Okay. So I, from two areas I want to go here. One is the skeptical route. Just I actually believe in what you do, but I'm going to go the skeptical route, and I'm going to challenge with my own personal experiences, so you can help me understand myself maybe a little bit better. And then also I want to know another question about where it talks about. Well, anyways, we'll get to it about neuropsychology and multi-generational fears. So, but let's first talk about this. So, for instance, I'm in an industry where when I look at what the top people are doing versus what I'm doing, okay, so I could write down a list of and really, I guess I don't know this because I haven't had personal conversations with them. I know what they say they're doing, so that's as close to what they're actually doing as I could get at this point because I haven't seen their schedule. But I know what they say they're doing, and when I see what they say they're doing, I don't know that it's necessarily a fear of mine, although I'm totally willing to accept that it's a fear. It's really, for myself, it seems like a lifestyle that I just am not interested in. The amount of effort and sacrifice of, and this is where I would say the fear comes in, right? I'm going to label it as sacrifice because that helps my self-psyche feel good about what I'm saying, but I'm sure it's a fear. But I see these people who are excelling at a high level, many of them, and then they end up divorced or losing their family, losing relationships, and that doesn't, or missing out on their children's lives, and like, oh, well, it's worth it because now we're 18 and we have all this success. I'm like, I don't care about, like, I would rather have memories with my kids than the money. Doesn't mean that I couldn't get the money. So that's one thing. And then also I see a lot of people who say that you just have to work harder, put more time in. And I have a belief, could be a fear, that we live in an age that automation should be able to replace a lot of time. And so I don't really see any value in putting more time in when I think that I just need to find an automated way to do what I need to do rather than invest more time. I need to invest more in automation. So those are the things that have kind of held me back. I'm years behind other people and millions of dollars a year behind other people who have been here less time than I have in my industry. So how does that look like? Is it fear? Is it just you just don't want to do it? What does that look like? I'm just curious.
Well, the first thing is it sounds like you're looking to model the wrong people. So we can say the top people in the industry, but the top person in the industry for you as someone to model is someone who also has a healthy family life. So you would model the person with the life that you want. You don't want to be working 24/7. I agree. I believe in life balance. But what you need to find is someone who's ahead of you, who does have life balance, who does have a family life, and is still doing things that you're not doing. And it's very likely there are some of those in your industry as well.
Sure.
And that removes then all of those fears that you're describing.
Okay, so top people so in my mind, they would need to be, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, they would need to be at the same stage in my industry as I am. Because a lot of those people who I look forward to, when they were at where I'm at, they did sacrifice time. So now their life looks differently because they put in all the work and now they have what they have. But somebody who's where I'm at in the industry, starting with what I have, if they look at my business, what would they say I would do? If that person then says, well, at this stage, the solution is go work your butt off, that's when I'm like, well, I don't like that solution. If that's what it takes to have what you have, I'm probably not actually interested in having what you have. And I'm aware of that.
And I mean, I think it's okay to not want that.
Sure.
But again, it just depends. So the people who are coming to me because they want to be one of the top in the world, if not the number one in the world at what they do. Mm-hmm. If you don't want that, then I think you're following the right process. And it may not be a fear of failure. It might be just be, hey, this is the life I want. But if you're saying I want to be one of the top in the world, you can't also say I want to be one of the top of the world and I don't want to do the work to get there.
Sure.
Now, and effectively what you're saying right now is I want to be I want to be successful, or I'm not even sure if I want to be successful, but I certainly don't want to put in the grind these other people have put in. And again, that's absolutely fine, but we just wouldn't expect the same results as the people who've worked harder than you.
Okay, that's fair. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, I don't care if I'm the top. I want to be the best in my wife's eyes, and that's about it. My kids would be nice if they think I'm great, but I think my kids are probably going to not like me for the next few years anyways, until they are in my position of like, oh, okay, I get why you did what you did, Dad. But yeah, okay, so that's good though. But still, I think I could find people who I do like their relationship, and I think I could still improve a lot by finding the right people to model. So that's a good key pointer for me. I like it. Thank you for that, for helping me through that. The next question here is, so I studied neuropsychology in college, which is definitely different than what you studied. But But one of the things, you've probably heard of Joe Dispenza, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the things that he talks about in his research and that he writes about is the idea of that there's certain, well, if we just deduce us down to electronic beings, right? We all have these electronical things in our lives. There could be a past trauma or fear that was actually multi-generationally back that happened that messed up the electronic cycle. That electronic cycle has been duplicated through the DNA and RNA process into multiple generations. And now you may not have ever had that airplane fear, but your grandpa may have had that airplane fear. Mm. And that fear has been transferred. How does somebody go about determining whether that's actually a fear that was even created in their lifetime, or if it was like a few generations back of just bad traumatic experience that's been duplicated?
I haven't actually seen, so I've done around somewhere between 13 and 14,000 sessions.
Okay.
And I haven't had clients who couldn't find an initial sensitizing event.
Okay.
So, I mean, in terms of, number of clients, I've probably seen close to the most of anyone in the world in terms of hours of sessions done of this particular type of modality. So a regression hypnotherapy. And in virtually every case, we get back to a root cause, obvious, pretty clear narrative as to why the person has that issue. So where there may be some generational fear that comes up in certain areas, it's not something that I've actually seen in my work with thousands of people.
Okay, no, that's great. So let's then talk about because you're only the second hypnotist I've ever had on my show, and I love the concept, and I think it's super, super misunderstood, which leads to the skepticism. People don't, and it's almost silly because like once you understand it, you're like, okay, everybody gets hypnotized every day, whereas at least in a state of hypnosis at one point or multiple points during the day.
Throughout
Yet they're skeptical when they hear the word hypnosis and they think, oh, I don't want you to control me. So can you just briefly, you don't have to go into lots and lots of detail, but briefly just explain what is hypnosis and what are the different stages of hypnosis and what are some circumstances where you might find yourself in a hypnotic state without realizing it, so we can just be more conscious of the time of day when we are being hypnotized by life.
Okay. Yeah. So the easiest way to describe, I mean, the reason most people are skeptical is because of stage hypnosis and what they've seen on television or what they've seen at their college, graduation event. So that is a stage show. And it's predominantly a magic trick with a hint of hypnosis in it. So there's a very small number of people who are very susceptible to that type of hypnosis. And then there's also a lot of social pressure that comes into that dynamic that means you can make a very interesting, fun-looking show that's nothing like the work I do. So I'm a hypnotherapist, and as you said, the state that I'm looking for is a working trance state. The one that most people will recognize is when you're driving your car down the highway and you seem to zone out and you've just missed a few of the junctions, and you notice again that you're driving and it seems like time's passed very quickly. Another time in the day when most people are feeling it is as they're waking up in the morning and they're sort of half awake, half asleep, or as they're going to sleep at night in that same sort of stage. So you're in this trance-like state, which is the same state that you're looking to reach when you're doing meditation, for anyone who has a meditation practice. What we're looking to do is make the subconscious mind dominant. So when we're having a conversation now, our conscious minds are dominant, and we're thinking about the things that we're saying, and our mind's processing in a different way. When we reach that trance state, the subconscious mind becomes dominant, and that's like hacking into the DOS system, or the programming behind Windows. So we're looking to look at the core programming of, okay, I have this emotion. Whenever I try and make the sales call, I feel physically sick. We're then tracing back that physical sensation to other memories in your life that have made you feel the same way. And then that will typically bring up these initial and then secondary sensitizing events that explain why it's particularly difficult for that individual to be making the sales call, or to ask out the woman, or to ask for a pay rise, or whatever it might be they're holding themselves back on. And because the subconscious is dominant, it knows why it's making you feel sick. So it just shows you why it's making you feel that way. And then we reframe those memories and change those memories. Memories are plastic, they're malleable. It's never the same memory as you revisit it. And what we can do with hypnotherapy is overwrite the memory effectively. So change the emotional response to the memory so that when something happens in your everyday life, it doesn't trigger in the same way. So when you used to get a fear response, like I would have, as I say, getting on a plane, I would have an adrenaline response. I no longer have that adrenaline response because the trigger behind it has now been changed.
Okay. Love it. So thank you so much for that. I was good. I literally, as you said it, I was writing it down. How is it different than meditation? I feel like in society, meditation is a more widely accepted term. And if again, I'm making a statement that I don't know about. So if they're the same thing or close enough, why not just call yourself a meditation therapist rather than a hypnotherapist so that people aren't so triggered? I mean, which is funny, but so triggered by what it is you're doing.
I mean, first off, I want to be honest about what I'm doing. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm not doing meditation. So just being congruent, whether or not someone doesn't want to work with me, that's fine. I'd rather be congruent and be honest about the work I do. With meditation, you're looking to be mindful. So you're looking to get yourself to that trance state, typically then follow your breath or something else like that every time thoughts come up. So you're following your breath, a thought comes up, you bring yourself back to your breath again, and that's the exercise. It's training you to be able to focus and clear your mind of thoughts. So separate yourself from the thoughts that you're having. With hypnotherapy, when we get to that state, instead of looking to refocus on the breath, where you can to use all of that focus on a very specific emotion. So be that emotion anxiety, it's like a focused meditation on a specific emotion. So it's intense focus rather than with meditation as sort of a moving away from a thought. So it is different. It feels the same. The trance side of it's similar, but in hypnotherapy, we're looking to do work. And in meditation, you're looking to train yourself with reps of bringing yourself back to your breath. So there's enough of a difference where I feel that if I describe myself as a meditation teacher or guided meditation, I don't know what I would call myself, but it just wouldn't be congruent to not describe the work that I'm doing.
Sure. No, I think that was good. So I'm going to restate what I heard, and I don't want it to sound negative to anybody listening, right? But meditation is, rather than allowing yourself to focus on, once you get that state, it's more of an avoidance or a calming tactic of like, hey, whatever's happening, all those thoughts, they don't matter. I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. Where hypnotherapy is, hey, and I'm going to use a word here, but let's go to war with what's happening, reframe it so that it just doesn't come up anymore. So
meditation is a technique like you described to allow yourself to separate yourself from the triggers. So be able to control the triggers as they come up. Hypnotherapy is used to try and remove the triggers so they're not firing in the first place.
Okay. So from your perspective, right, obviously you're in hypnotherapy, but is there immense value in both? Or from your perspective, completely. Would it say, why not just clear the trigger?
I do both. I believe there's immense value in meditation, and there's a lot of research to show that there's incredible value in it. And it's for different things. So in all cases, we're not looking to clear all the triggers in someone's mind. We're not looking to clear all of their thoughts. With meditation, it won't necessarily be a trigger or a big emotion that's coming up. It might be that you just have a thought that keeps coming up that you want to be able to move away from, or you get distracted when you're doing your work, and having a practice that allows you to bring yourself back to focus efficiently is really valuable for you. So both of them are valuable, but they are just different modalities. They're different things.
Cool. No,
the state is very similar.
No, perfect. So I think that was very helpful for the people who are listening and have ever been triggered by the concept. And I was triggered at one point before it was ever explained to me. I was like, oh, that's weird. You shouldn't be doing because the stage show is very, very different than active professionals who are actually using it as a modality to help somebody move. I've got something in my eye. So let's talk about one more thing, and I want to go into an influence triangle that I heard about, and I want to just point that out for your business. But how do you determine as you're going through one, I mean, you've now been doing this for years, but how do you determine, yes, these clients, they have a lot of money, but there's people. So I want to know how you charge, or how you determine how you charge. And there's people who have businesses and they're my clients, and they feel bad charging a certain amount of money because they think, well, at this point, it's like natural for me. It's fun to do. I feel bad charging what I would consider is their worth, because they think, well, it's so easy for me, I shouldn't charge for it. But for the person they're coaching, it's not so easy for them, which is why they want to pay you for it. So how do you determine, when you have a skill like yours where you've put in decades of work, tens of thousands of hours worth of perfecting your craft and practicing your craft with millions of people, and then the one person comes in, obviously they're probably not stingy people who are coming in because they want to become the best in the world, but still, how do you determine placing the right value on what you're doing? Is it something you determine, or do you just ask the person, hey, what's the value you see in getting this transformation? And that's what you charge. So how do you determine your price point for each client?
So I just have price point where that's my price point. So if someone wants to work with me, they can, or if they don't want to work with me, they don't have to. In terms of how I ended up at that price point, I would just wait until I was fully booked. And when it got to a stage, if it was inconvenient for people to be able to book in with me, I would raise my price. So that was just a process I've run over 10 years. So whenever I was getting to a stage where I couldn't cope with the workload, I would increase my price and increase my price and increase my price. And you find that as you increase your price, you go through a stage where, some clients drop off, and then it sort of balances out a bit. And then, as I say, we get very busy again. And so I just use that as a process over this period of time.
Okay, so are you still in a stage of going through that where you're still occasionally raising your price, or has it been pretty consistent for X amount of time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll still continue that process for infinity. Unfortunately, I'm in a situation where the money that my clients have and the impact that I can have on their businesses is dramatic. Mm-hmm. So, in many cases, people have gone from not having very much money to having tens of millions of dollars. And they've put that change down to the work that we've done together in some of those cases, which is obviously great for my advertising. When you've seen those sorts of shifts, and you've got those sorts of testimonials, and, I'm working with people who are running multinational companies, playing in the highest stakes poker tournaments in the world, some of the biggest gamblers in the world, well-known professional athletes. Price it's not a major concern in terms of, it's whether am I the right coach rather necessarily than how much I charge for coaching is more of the thing that they're looking for as an individual. Can I help them reach their goal? And, I won't say, hey, you're going to make more money than that person, so I'm going to charge you differently. I have a price I am at the moment, and then in a year's time, it will probably be more. Which is why I don't talk about my price on podcasts, because I'll give a price now, and in a year's time, it might be a completely different price again.
Sure. No, and I respect this. And this is the conversation I actually wanted to have. I don't want you to tell anybody what your price is. Yeah. If they want that, they'll search you out, and they'll find out what it is today. I just think there's a lot of business people who are stuck on not knowing how to charge and not knowing how to make that make sense.
It's market value. I mean, if you're pitching your price and everybody's rejecting you, then your price is too high, more likely than not, or your sales process is ineffective. If you're in a position where you can fill your books for months in advance, you're too cheap, because there shouldn't be a situation where you are massively overloaded. I mean, I reached a stage where I could have genuinely booked in 100 clients a week. That there is no way I can see anything like that number of people. So, it just doesn't make any sense. So you start to realize that, hey, I'm getting all of these inquiries and it's not possible for me to work with them. I need to significantly raise my prices to put a number of people off. So, I mean, it's not the most eloquent way of determining, it's a very, very simplistic way of determining value. But I just think it's market supply and demand. If you're in a high demand, you should probably be raising your prices, because if the demand's too high, then the price is wrong. And if people aren't signing up with you, especially if the main reason they're saying they're not signing up with you is because price is a concern, then probably you're too expensive.
So let's just ask this though, because I do business coaching as well. So are you too expensive, or is it more likely that you have not been very good at expressing the value you offer to that individual?
Depends if you're a good coach.
Like, well, I mean, it's not coaching. Sometimes it's carpet cleaning or
whatever it is. I mean,
not coaching.
I do feel that most of the time, if you can make your value very clear and the person understands the value that you're bringing, you can probably charge vastly more money and you're going to get more conversions. So it should be about what you're offering to the client and how you're going to improve their life, much more so than the service. And like, as I've explained it this way to people I've trained, you don't care how the plumber fixes your toilet. You want your toilet fixed. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, when they're selling their services, they get into the nitty gritty of exactly what they're going to do, when all the client wants to know is the result is their carpet's cleaned. And it's going to be as clean as it can possibly be. And it's going to take this time scale. And I think many people get stuck on the technicalities that no one outside of the industry would understand. So focus on the pain, focus on how you're going to improve their life. And, in most cases, if you can demonstrate where you've helped other people struggling in a similar situation previously, that's obviously going to give credibility to what you're offering. And really work on that sales process, because there's you want to work on the sales process before you lower your prices. Certainly you need to make sure that it's not that you're just selling poorly or you're sabotaging yourself, because I have people come to me who they are aware that they're sabotaging themselves in their sales process.
Mm-hmm. So let's this is the next question here. In my experience, again, I can just speak from my experience. It doesn't mean it's true. If you're listening to this, you're like, well, that's not true. That's fine. It may not be true for you. But in my experience, and this includes myself, and it was something that I've had to work on. I'm still not great at it, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. And that is, a lot of people in their sales process, especially if they are the person trying to sell their services themselves, they're very uncomfortable talking about all of their gifts or their skills and like really talking themselves up of the true value they do offer. They underplay themselves because they've been told at some point in time that it's more noble to be humble, and humble means self-deprecation, which doesn't, but that's society has helped them believe that that's true. That's a program.
Yeah.
So how often when you're coaching people does that belief come up in one way, shape, or form that's holding them back from actually like selling properly?
I mean, I would say some variant of the self-worth issue comes up with every client. No matter, it just depends where it starts to kick in. And for some people, that's at $10,000s a year, and for other people, it's at tens of millions of dollars a year. But there's a self-worth issue that's linked to this that comes up for almost everyone. And that seems to be the core of all of the work that I do. Is eventually it comes down to, do I believe I'm lovable? Can I love myself? And showing self-worth through what you're willing to charge for yourself is just one variant of how that shows up in parts of your life.
I love it, guys. That is why I was excited to have him on this show, because you guys need to go talk to him, or maybe he'll tell you to go talk to somebody else like him, but has more time. Who knows? But it comes down to a self-worth thing. I know for me, the biggest change that has happened in my business was a self-worth conversation. I felt like I was working harder than anybody else. I was putting in more hours. I was doing everything. I was doing more appointments, but I was just not winning. And I had a 30-minute conversation with somebody who said, yeah, I'll give you a free 30-minute consultation on a podcast that I was listening to. So I signed up and I was like, sure, absolutely. Why not? It's free. Right. And in 30 minutes, we got down to a core belief that I didn't believe I was worthy of success because of some other things that were going on in my life at the time. And as soon as like that came up and I was like, really? That's what's holding me back? It's like, simply, I don't believe I'm worth it. That's so dumb. I'm so worth it. And I changed myself, my affirmations, and nearly quadrupled my income the next year. simply from changing whether or not I believed I was worth success. It's so silly.
But a story I've seen repeated over and over again. Like, it really is something where if you can adjust those small programs that are running and holding you back, it really, it uncaps you. It will certainly uncaps you until the next level. And then, a few years down the line, you might find you hit another resistance and you need to work through it again. But there's a big difference between where you were before and when you hit the next cap.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to talk about what I'm going to call the influence triangle. I don't really know what else to call it because it doesn't have a name that I know of. But if you can imagine a triangle, and I'm going to describe what happened for Elliot's business. It started out smaller, then went into the poker sphere, and then out of the poker sphere, it kind of grew beyond that, right? And we all have what I would consider, I'm calling it today, an influence triangle, right? And we are at the bottom of that triangle, right? Imagine a triangle on the bottom. You're just a small little circle at the bottom. As you continue to grow and develop in your industry and in your life, or maybe it's as a parent or in a religious setting or whatever it is, as you grow your influence, pretty soon that circle begins to expand outside of the edges of that triangle. Elliot's triangle, for this purpose and context, being poker players, right? Well, then other people start hearing about his influence. And now he said only about 30% of his sphere of influence is in that poker triangle. Now his sphere of influence has increased in capacity to where it's now including other things. And that's one of the things that from a legacy perspective, I hope people are thinking about, hey, I've got to start living my legacy now. And as my legacy continues to grow because I'm living it consistently every day, soon your legacy is not going to be in this specific industry, family, religion, whatever it is that it started in. It will, if done properly, in my perspective, your influence will begin to grow and the impact you have on the world will be much bigger than where you started. And it's okay to allow that to change. I've seen people, when their influence starts to get outside of their poker players or their triangle, that's when those limiting beliefs come in. They hit that wall and they're like, nope, I'm just a great poker player coach. I can't coach an Olympian. And it's like, dude, it's the same thing.
Everything's the same. And I think it also points to the importance of niching initially. So becoming known as an expert in a specific area gives you the ability to be an expert in other areas as well, because you've demonstrated that you can reach the sort of the top level of something. I think some people, certainly in the coaching industry, they can make the mistake of saying that they can do everything for everyone from the beginning, and they don't build. It's very hard to build a reputation of doing everything for everybody.
And even if you did build one, it's a terrible reputation. Don't build it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, certainly, viewing it that way as in sort of filling out the triangle and moving to the next or broader area is certainly been effective for me through my career.
Man, I love it so much. Well, we're running out of time here, but I'm curious if somebody feels, you know who he's working with, but if somebody feels, I want to talk to Elliot, I don't care what the price is, I'm ready to make some serious changes in my life. And maybe it's not a financial change, right? I had my sister, she was coaching with somebody, a great friend of mine, and she's like, man, I'm too scared to tell him X, Y, or Z. I'm like, well, if all you get out of this exchange is you're no longer scared to tell somebody something, that was worth every penny you paid.
That was worth it.
If that's all you get, it was worth $100,000. I know you didn't pay $100,000, but that's worth $100,000 to know, to be able to say yes and no to the right things. If that's all you get, you win the lottery with that. Okay. So yeah. It doesn't have to be a financial reward to get this change, because happiness, peace, confidence, there's no real financial sticker to what that's worth. And nobody knows, not even Elliot doesn't know what that's going to mean over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your lifespan. Right. And sometimes the connections are worth more than any money that you could ever make. The connections and the meaningful relationships you build when you're no longer scared to build a meaningful relationship. So this is for everybody, but where could they get in touch with you? Where could they contact you and see if you're a good fit for them?
So I have elliotroe.com is my website, and there's an application form there. And we have a team of coaches I've trained. So for most people, I'm not the right fit, but we can usually find someone who is the right fit, who uses the same modality and is trained by me for you. And then we also have an app which you can download for free. It's called Primed Mind. It's on the App Store or Google Play. That has around 40 audios that you can use to try hypnotherapy and see if it's right for you. And then if you buy the upgrade, it's around 300 different audios from everything from anxieties, confidence, fear of flying, ironically, weight loss, like setting yourself up for the day, sales calls, going on dates. So really covers all areas of life. And you can download and try it for free. So I'd recommend that would be the starting point to see if you like that feeling of getting your mind into that state.
Awesome. So ElliotRoe.com. So it's ELLIOT Roe, which is ROE.com.
Yeah.
You can fill out an application there and potentially meet with him or one of his associates, or you can download the app Primed Mind. Primed Mind.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, and you can download that on pretty much any app store. So absolutely, guys, if you haven't been using some form of hypnotherapy, I think you'd be shocked at how helpful it is. I know it's been helpful for me whenever I've chosen to get that type of mentorship and coaching, because it really changes your ability to just see what is and move past it and be free and like I don't even know how to express the amount of peace that I have in my life, knowing that I'm worthy, not being scared of failure, like the certain areas where it's changed my life. The amount of peace, it's just like there's nothing even upsetting in my life hardly anymore. Because it's like, yeah, I don't care. Like I'm just happy with where I'm at. So definitely check it out. I'm curious. So this is called Legacy on Rapid Fire. What do you think is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Right now, everything's growing pretty substantially in the business. Probably hours in the week of doing too many client sessions and not enough product building. So from where I'm at in my career, definitely scalable products like I'm doing with the app. I do video courses, those sorts of things are going to be where the biggest growth comes from. And we're transitioning between that. But there's obviously, I enjoy my client sessions more. The legacy comes from the products where I don't have to be alive for them to work. So it's just, adjusting my time so that a higher percentage of my time goes to building things that don't need my day-to-day effort. So that's something that I'm actively working on and we're adjusting at the moment.
Awesome. So what is the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
Hardest thing I've ever accomplished. I mean, I think when we talk about accomplishments, the sort of my proudest accomplishment, and certainly in terms of effort, is raising my children. Like more so than any of the professional stuff, it's just I've got twin girls, and it's been the most fun, it's been the most rewarding, and it's been more sleepless nights than anything else. So
that was going to be the next questions. What's your greatest success? And
it's that, I mean, everything else is irrelevant. I mean, I think you said at the beginning of the show, it's nice having success. It's fun watching, I've been very lucky. I've seen, I've had clients win Olympic medals, have world records, crazy money and all of those things. And that's super fun and it's interesting to see. But in reality, I think most people's happiness comes from the relationships they have at a family level, and also at a friendship level locally. So building strong network and relationships and feeling like you're trying your best for your children, it's never going to be perfect, but at least looking back on it and feeling that you're doing your best, that's where I feel my highest level of success. And I'm sure when they're adults, they'll have a list of things that I've done wrong, and that's to be expected. But I think certainly in terms of, the effort that I'm looking to put in, that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Awesome. That's incredible. And then what is a secret habit, mindset, or behavior that you think contributes the most to your success?
I think, in terms of behavior, I use coaches for everything. And I think there are a lot of coaches who don't use coaches. So in terms of my week, I have a personal trainer 5 days a week for 90 minutes. I have a mindset coach once every 2 weeks. I do energy work once a month. I have a business coach once a month. I have assisted stretching once a week. I do a massage once a week. So in the same way that I'm asking my clients to invest in me, I'm investing in myself because I believe in those processes. And a sleep coach, I forgot about that. And all of it's just to optimize. So it's not that I have bad sleep, but if I can sleep slightly better, then I'm going to be better for my clients. That means I'm going to get better results. That means everything's going to improve. So I invest heavily in getting experts to help me in different areas because I don't believe it's possible to be an expert in every area. So that's, I mean, it's an expensive trick, but it's one that has had an enormous impact on my energy levels, my performance in my work, and my energy levels and my performance in my work then turn into the success, which is then exponential.
Yep, I love it. Cool. So here's the final question. Favorite question of the show and why I do it. So we're going to pretend that you've died. Okay, we're talking about 6 generations from now. So this is your great grandchildren. They're sitting around the table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
That I help millions of people improve their mindset. And I mean, I think that's something is a very reasonable target for where I'm at. And I would like to help a lot of people overcome things that are holding them back. I mean, like with the app, the things like the study courses, so people struggling with exam stress, we have all of that for free. So, if someone's struggling with exam stress, they can download the app. They don't have to pay anything. And, I want to be able to help as many people as possible with different things, because I believe, mindset is more controllable than people believe it is. And it's just some relatively basic techniques in a lot of cases that can literally change the ability of the person to perform in their life and enjoy their life. So if it was 6 generations from now, I would like to have as much of an impact on the mindset of individuals in the world as I possibly can.
Incredible, man. I love it. Thank you so much, Elliot, for coming on the show and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I'm so excited to re-listen to this and relearn from this conversation. It's been incredible. Thank you so much, and hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Just thank you so much.
Stuff, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me on the show.
On the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.